Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to Ending Physician Overwhelm. Today, we are going to ask ourselves the question, who do you think you are? Looking at it from a variety of perspectives. So I want you to hang with me because that question, even just writing down the words, is potentially threatening or challenging. And I want to show you a different way to approach the question, especially as we are entering this phase that we are, wherever you are in your life, where in the United States our country is, where the world is, thinking about the present challenges that we face, where we are in healthcare. We are entering a new era. I think most of us can acknowledge we don't know exactly what is around the corner, although there's definitely fear and very real concern going on. So without belaboring those parts of it and not diving into the politics and doom-mongering, I want us to look at this question in a way that helps us to become more of who we are and who we want to be. So, without further ado, let's dive in. The first way that I want us to look at this question, who do you think you are, is exactly dealing with the anxiety, with the challenge that this question brings up. Many of us have encountered the question, who do you think you are, overtly or covertly throughout our existence. Now, you may have grown up in a household where perhaps if you raised an opinion or, asked a question in a certain way, you were met with challenge from a parent or another adult or maybe an older sibling who made it clear that they didn't think that your opinion was valid, right? That who do you think you are component. That is a side of this question where there is a power dynamic at play. And I want us to acknowledge that. Again, we're not going to only focus on this element, but many of us have faced this in one way or the other at some point in our lives. And if this happened to you at a very young age, if your opinions were challenged, if you were not given a voice, if you learned how to navigate the world by putting other people first, making other people happy, that may be a very real part of the challenge that you face now as an adult who is not in that same position, but has learned along the way that it's not okay to speak up, that it's not okay to give an opinion, that it's not okay to argue. We need to acknowledge those parts of us. We may have encountered this at different parts in our lives. We may have encountered a teacher or a coach or, again, some other authority figure, but at a different time than in early childhood. That, may have also given us a different flavor of this. And sometimes that may have challenged us for the better and inspired us to do things differently in a way that, was painful but growth oriented. And other times it simply shut us down. We all have a variety of experiences, again, with this question, different versions of this question asked to us at different stages in our lives, right? There may have been encounters too where you were the person who was in more of a power position. Something that we faced simply by being physicians or, healthcare professionals of some stripe. We may have encountered it where someone who was a patient or, a staff member in a, quote unquote, lower position of power looked at us and angrily shouted, "Who do you think you are?" I want to acknowledge this part because, again, I see so many of us struggle with when we speak up, when we voice an opinion, when we need to have an uncomfortable dialogue with people or not meet their expectations, disappoint them by not being immediately available or agreeing to do whatever they wanted to do. Many of us have a deep-seated fear. Some of us even have, trauma responses that are connected to this idea of disappointing other people, of other people being threatening. It's important that we acknowledge this and see that as part of our experience that is shaping our current experience, right? So if you're someone who has faced this at different points and you can recognize that, yes, people have challenged me in that way. And because of that, I struggle to speak up for myself. I struggle to put myself first. I struggle disappointing other people or not meeting their expectations. Let's acknowledge those parts of it and be able to see it again as part of the struggle that we face in feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, exhausted, in particular by a healthcare system that typically doesn't really see us as human beings. Our healthcare system asks us to be professional, it asks us to be empathetic to a degree, but it also is extremely inconvenienced by any of our bodily or emotional needs as the providers of healthcare. Okay. So, if we can acknowledge that, if we can see that as part of the challenges that we face and start to work on it as we have done throughout the course of the podcast, there are many episodes that come back to this theme in various ways. Let's move on to a different version of this question. So, another thing that I would like you to ask yourself is, who do you think you are? And what I am getting at here is that many of us are walking around with a background self concept that is holding us back or harming us in some way. So many times when people start working with me, I hear various versions of the following. I'm so lazy, I can't get my work done. If only I could be more efficient, then I could do this work. I'm so behind on things. I'm just not any good at this. There is a constant theme of self-degradation that I hear over and over and over again in physicians and other healthcare professionals thinking that because they are struggling to keep up with the volume of tasks that they are asked to do, with the quality and integrity with which they are asked to do them, that there is something wrong with them. How many of us walk around feeling that we are the problem, that if only we weren't so, I'm just going to name a list, we weren't so dumb, lazy, inefficient, ineffective, passive, any number of adjectives that you could throw out there. If we internalize those attributes, and again, we are working in a system that very clearly assigns us more than is reasonable to do, you can see how this affects us. Again, I'm going to cite this study that was published in August of 2022 in the Journal of Medical Economics that said that a primary care physician needed 26.7 hours per day to take care of the healthcare related needs of a quote unquote full panel of patients. And I don't remember if they put a number on there of the number of patients. But in order to provide the preventative care associated with wellness visits, vaccines, being able to provide acute care visits, being able to provide chronic care, chronic disease management, things like that, presumably some education, form completion, you name it. 26.7 hours per day is what is required in order to get all those tasks done. So that's 26.7 hours per day, I believe, for a 5-day work week is how they calculated it. So more hours per day than exist in a 24-hour day, which is what all humans on the planet Earth experience. I love coming back to this article for a number of different reasons, but I want us to see that it is a clear piece of evidence that we have more on our plate than is reasonable to do. And that looks a variety of different ways, and that's probably variable across settings. And I personally am not aware of similar studies across specialties, although I imagine that there may be some. But if my level of work would take me 26.7 hours out of a 24-hour day, right? I am down 2.7 hours every day, let alone having time to eat, pee, sleep, or be a human, right? I am losing hours out of my life, right? According to this study. And they also said that with high functioning teams, and I'd love you to raise your hand if you have a high functioning team, and I'm not going to see hardly any hands go up. With a high functioning team, that volume of work dropped down to something like 9.5 hours per day, right? Which very easily is the quote unquote normal amount of hours, that a primary care physician puts in, although it's probably a little bit on the low side because I know us, we tend to spend a lot of hours, in our off time. We work through lunch, we come early, we stay late, we work pajama time hours after the kids are in bed. We do a variety of things. I'm belaboring the point here. But again, I want us to be very clear that if I need more time than is, according to physics, existing in the course of a day in order to complete my work, and I'm also walking around with the self-concept that I am lazy, inefficient, that I just can't get my act together, that someday they're going to find out that I'm just no good at this. That picture as a backdrop to our lived experience keeps us stuck. It keeps us feeling very negatively about ourselves. It keeps us, of course, hating medicine. It keeps us thinking that we are the problem and continually overworking, trying to scurry and catch up, when again, there is an unreasonable amount of work to do. Now, if we couple that with the first thing, the challenge of who do you think you are and trying to constantly meet other people's expectations, you can see how that feeds in here. So I ask you, who do you think you are? In order for you to be able to see what is the story that I tell myself day in, day out about who I am. We could take this into another little thread here, which is also that we may feel like the person that I am is someone who, cares about exercise and health and time with their family and any number of other things that we want for our lives. And yet, when we look at the amount of time we spend doing those things in comparison to the amount of time that we spend doing our medical work, we can see that there's also a mismatch there. So who we think we are is someone who values this, but our lived experience is showing us something else. My point here is not to have us feeling miserable and terrible about where we are right now. That's not helpful, guys. We're not doing that. Shame is a terrible, terrible driver of change. It works for a bit, it feels terrible, and it does not produce the long-term outcomes that we are looking for. Let go of any shame that you have associated with thinking that it's just a you problem. It's not a you problem. It's easier and more convenient for the entire healthcare system if you believe it's a you problem and you continue to work as hard as you do and try to do as much as you possibly can for all the humans, rather than for them having to restructure healthcare in order to change expectations of what is reasonable and what is not, in order to restructure the profit-driven insurance system that we have, which is, always about, shouldn't say that, it's not always about denying care, but as we have seen, there are lots of very strong conversations going on online about how insurance is trying to maximize profit for their shareholders and their C-suite people and minimize the number of healthcare dollars seen, right? That has been so very clear since December when the CEO of United Healthcare was murdered. We're not diving deep into that topic, but I want you to see very clearly, without trying to devolve into cynicism and toxicity, that the system is aligned against us, probably not intentionally to malign us or anyone else, but it likes to perpetuate this notion that we are the problem, that we are not fast enough, that we are not efficient enough, because that is easier than restructuring the entire system. Medical culture has also gone along with this, right? It feeds into it too, because many of us can look at the generation above, or, above us, or above, above the people above us, right? Prior generations, who also feed into this narrative that every subsequent generation is lazy, bad at their job, not able to keep up. We have created a very toxic soup of believing, keeping us believing that it's an us problem. So sit down and pull out a piece of paper. I don't recommend doing this on your phone, because I don't think you'll get the same sort of stream of conscious unless, I don't know, you are a super fast thumb typer. I want you to write down, what are some of the words that immediately come to my mind when I think about what is my performance at my job? And I want you to see the negativity that's probably baked in there. Again, if you don't edit, if you just write it down. Who do you think you are when you are not reflecting from a positive place, when you are not seeing all the goodness that you bring and do for people? We need to unravel some of this, or all of it perhaps, so that we understand that we, kind-hearted, hardworking, empathetic humans, are caught up in a system that leaves us exhausted, overwhelmed, and burned out. I do believe that there are other paths. I do believe that we can feel better. I do believe that we can navigate this broken system and work together to change it. But we have to get unstuck from the notion that we are a problem. The third way that I want for us to look at this question is put an emphasis on some of the different words. How do you, no, sorry, got the question wrong already. Who do you think that you are? And the way I want you to think about this version is your true self. Your true self is the version of you that is not exhausted, overwhelmed, cynical, swimming in anxiety, spewing hatred and toxicity. The real, true version of you as a human, imagine yourself in a well-fed, rested state, the version of you that values what you do, that values the interactions that you have with patients or with staff or colleagues, the you that delights in your friends and your family, the you that takes in a beautiful sunset and feels a deep sense of awe and peace and calm. Who do you think that you are? If we can identify with the concept of ourselves, where we see medicine and our professional titles as yes, some parts of us, right? It has an impact. Who, we are at our core, by just the practice of practicing medicine for a number of years, of being involved in intimate care experiences, which pretty much all of us do from time to time. When we really connect with that part of us and we see our medical hat self as just a part, and hopefully a smaller part from here on, of who we are at our core, when we see all of the facets of ourselves and know what's true for ourselves. I'm going to give you some examples. When we connect with where we fall on the introvert extrovert spectrum, right? When we can really truly understand that, and where we can see how other parts of our lives interact there. If you tend to be more introverted and you spend time seeing lots and lots of people every day to help them negotiate their health issues, and then you come home to other people in your house, that's a lot of people, right? And a more introverted person probably needs some more quiet time, some more ability to recharge their social batteries. And that's different from somebody who tends to fall more extroverted, who gets joy and energy from being around other people. Now, it is absolutely true that you might be extroverted. You might really love being around people, and you also get your social battery and energy battery drained by your work. It may also be true, but I just want us to acknowledge, kind of where we are on that spectrum. And as we think about what we want for our lives inside medicine and outside medicine, to realize, what do we need to do, especially if we're feeling burned out, overwhelmed, anxious all the time? What do we need to do to be more mindful of our battery, right? That is really seeing a core part of ourselves. Who do you think you are? My true self. I do get some energy from interacting with other people. There are certain topics like these ones that I get really excited talking about. Although, even though I'm talking to you, I'm also sitting in a room by myself, talking to myself, looking in the camera. So there's a double edge there. But I get some energy from talking to patients or talking to coaching clients and having a strong connection with them. I get some energy, right? And enjoyment from spending time with friends and family. Absolutely. But I am also someone who needs quiet time. I am also someone who loves to sit quietly and not be talked to for hours and hours. I know that about myself. And without intention, I have worked on creating a life where I get some of that. Now, it's not perfect. And, I chose to have children, and bringing children into my life, bringing talkative, highly intelligent kids into the world, who like to sit and spew facts at me, right? Like, that at various times in my life has added challenge, right? And it comes and goes, right? We hit seasons where we have more or less of some things depending on what we have done in our home lives, what we have done at work. We understand that, right? When you were in residency, when you were in medical school, and you were constantly moving through rotations, you were having a new job every 6 to 12 weeks or 4 to 12 weeks, depending on what the rotations looked like. And you needed to show up with a certain energy and be in relationship often to new people. That presents a certain challenge to people who, need more quiet time and reflection, right? We can see, but if we really understand, hey, that's part of who I am, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to take that into consideration as I make decisions for my life. Do you see how those parts interact? So, with this third question, who do you, in your rested, relaxed, calmest state, think that you, the true you, the core you, with your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your skills, your needs, the places where you're growing, think that you are? Who do you think that you are? And how will that knowing start to influence? As we are experiencing burnout, overwhelm, as we are going down internet rabbit holes and stewing in anxiety, it's very challenging to make decisions that will ultimately benefit us, right? It's very easy to think, I can't do this anymore. I just have to get out. I just have to go on vacation. I just have to quit this job, right? A lot of not really considered decisions. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying that that's always the wrong choice. What I'm saying, though, is when we focus on, well, I just need to leave this job, this employer, this clinic, this hospital, when we focus on that, we are in a very reactive state. And yes, that might be necessary, especially if there is, emotional abuse going on or some other kind of real toxicity. Those stories are very real. But that doesn't frame the bigger picture of what we want for ourselves. And that's what this question is designed to invite in. If we really know who we are, if I know who I am, if you know who you are at your core best self, then you can start to make decisions where you can be more in alignment with that version of you. And we can start to work towards that. If you know that spending more time with your young children, for example, is something that is critically important to you, when you know that, you can make decisions that are in better alignment with that, even if they are challenging decisions to make, such as maybe you're going to take a break for a few years. Maybe you're going to work part-time. Maybe that requires leaving this role and moving to a different place because this role won't allow you to work part-time. We can make those challenging decisions when we are very clear on who we are and what is important to us. But we have to be very clear because our tendency towards staying in anxiety and overwhelm will tend us to make decisions trying to think that there must be a best, most professional, most educated decision, but that is often not in alignment with who we really are and who we want to be and how we want to be and exist in the world. This is such good work to be done. And I want you to really lean into this question of who do you think that you are without cynicism, without trying to solve exactly how you're going to navigate what you identify about yourself, but just trying to listen to your inner knowing and be clear on who you are, what you need, what you want. We are fortunate in that as healthcare professionals, it is generally not hard for us to make money if we need to temporarily make money. There are locums positions, there are temporary assignments that we can do. And yeah, that might not be ideal and it might not be your long-term picture, but if you need to make money, you can typically find some way to do it while you are working on whatever is in more alignment with who you really are. I've seen so many people do that. Physicians who have left an employed practice of some kind, sometimes even an academic position, to build their own company. And in the meantime, in order to prevent taking out loans, they are doing locums or other call work so that they can work small periods of time. I'm not going to say that that's easy, but they can work small periods of time doing their medical work as they are building something new, right? Similarly, somebody might choose to take time off to step out of a role in order to spend more time with their kids. And again, maybe they're going to work locums. Maybe they're going to work, a 24-hour labor and delivery shift or something like that. So they're not in a quote unquote real job, if you will, but they are doing work, they are bringing in income, they are staying active in their field while they are devoting more time to spending with their family because they are very clear that that's important to them. There are many ways to do this. We won't always find those posted in a job board. We won't always, magically come up with an easy answer here. But I promise you that there are ways to be in better alignment with who you are and what you want. And this is the right work to be doing. This is the work that I have done for myself in creating different pockets of work that I do that I find engaging and fulfilling. And it's not all sunshine and roses. I still deal with insurance-based medicine and all the headaches that come with it. I still, work in a primary care practice where people could very easily keep me working all day, all the time, trying to meet their needs. I practice boundaries. I am clear on who I am and what I want. That allows me to be able to do other things that I find valuable, like record these podcast episodes, do my coaching work with other physicians, run Unbound, which is my coaching group for women physicians. I value those things. I value having some free time for myself. I have put those things into places, and I've seen other women physicians do the same in a variety of different ways. Again, opening their own practices or creating a coaching or a speaking business, doing things that are meaningful to them, that fill their cup, that stay in alignment with who they truly are. But it takes really knowing that and sometimes stepping away from something that feels very scary. My friends, I have hope. I trust that you can do this work. And yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. But if you are looking to be more in alignment with who you are, if you are ready to let go of holding on to other people's ideas of you and really embrace your own, I strongly encourage you to sit down with these questions. I strongly encourage you to reach out and let's connect. Let's set up a time to talk, you and I. You can consider joining Unbound, Women Physicians Reclaiming Their Lives, which will be reopening for enrollment in March. The doors will open for that soon and more information to come. There are many ways that you can engage with and do this work at a deeper level. My hope for you is that you'll believe in yourself and you'll believe in what's possible for you. My friends, thank you so much as always for listening. It's a pleasure to do this. I can't believe we're at 163 episodes and we're very soon pushing on, 23, 24, 25. Will be our third anniversary of the podcast coming up in March, 3 whole years of podcasting. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And until next time, take care. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you, as always, for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.